All right, man, we'll get started. All right, so my name is Juwan Parrish. I'm here with Kevin Edwards. It's November 3rd, 1:04 p.m. I am in Gainesville, Florida, and Mr. Edwards is in Washington, D.C., correct?
Well, Alexandria, Virginia, right outside of Washington, D.C.
Okay, perfect. Mr. Edwards, can you state your full name for us?
Yes, it's Kevin Gerard Edwards II.
And Kevin, where were you born at?
I was born in Jacksonville, Florida.
In what time? Like the year or the date?
Well, November 23rd, 1988. I believe it's a Wednesday, if my memory serves me correct. And I think it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, but I could be wrong.
You said November 23rd, 1978?
Oh, no, 1988. I'm not that old.
Oh, 88.
I'm only 30 years old.
Oh, I didn't mean to age you. My bad.
No, you good.
So you're a second. So your dad has the same name, correct?
Yep, Dad has the same name. He was the first.
He was the first. And is there a reason why they wanted to name you after him?
I have no clue. I know his dad was a second as well, so I'm guessing that may have something to do with it. But they didn't name him the third, so I don't know.
Okay. And are you?
Yeah, that's my dad.
Okay, cool. And are you the only child? Is there more? Or do you have siblings?
So I come from like a split family. So my mom, I'm an only child. Yes, with my dad, I have a little brother and a little sister, and I grew up with my dad. So in my family that I was growing up with, I wasn't the only child. But when I went with my mom for the summer times and holidays, I was the only child there.
So on your dad's side, you was not the only child, but on your mom's side, you were.
Correct.
And can you name your younger siblings and how old they are?
So I have two younger siblings. My little sister is Brianna Nicole Edwards. She's 22 years old. And my little brother is Solomon Russell Edwards. He is 18 years old right now.
And do they both reside in Florida?
No, so they reside in North Carolina. I grew up in North Carolina for the most part of my life. So my little sister, she's back in Charlotte, North Carolina, where we grew up at. And my little brother, he's in Greensboro, North Carolina, where he attends college.
Okay, so when you were living with your dad, that's when you stayed in North Carolina?
Correct. Yep. We moved around a lot. I can get in. I don't want to jump into that now, but if you want to, I can.
Hey, feel free.
Yeah. So okay. So I was the son of two Navy personnel. So they were Navy service members. Both of my parents, when they met and when they had me, they were enlisted service members in the Navy, and they met in Iceland. So another country. And I'm assuming that's where I was conceived at too. And actually, my mom, when she was pregnant, when they found out she was pregnant on base, they flew her back to Jacksonville, Florida, to the base there. And that's why she had me in Jacksonville. So when she was about to give birth to me, they flew my dad from Iceland to Jacksonville. And, I was born. We stayed in Jacksonville a little bit. I think I was in Jacksonville for maybe a year. And I would go back and forth from Jacksonville with my mom to Sanford, Florida, where my grandmother and her family lives at. And then I went with my aunt up in Michigan for a little bit and stayed with them while my parents kind of continued their naval service and finished out. And eventually, after living with my aunt for about a year, my dad got out of the naval service. My mom was still in, and he just came and got me and brought me to Hampton, Virginia. Well, actually, he brought me to Charlotte, North Carolina first. This is weird. It's a long story. He brought me to Charlotte, North Carolina first. We stayed here for about 2 or 3 years in Charlotte, North Carolina. Then we moved to Hampton, Virginia. And in Hampton, Virginia, I was there until I was about 8 or 9 years old. At 9 years old, we moved back to Charlotte, and that's where I grew up the rest of my life at.
In Charlotte.
Yeah.
Okay. Now you said both of your parents were in the Navy. Do you know what they did in the Navy?
So, my mom, she was I want to say she was an intel specialist, I believe, and I want to text her while you're asking this question just so I can make sure this is correct.
Okay.
Let me get my phone.
Okay.
And then my dad was an air crewman. So my dad flew, he was part of the crew on a plane that's called P3s. It's like it's basically like the bigger plane, a bigger cargo plane in the Navy. It's kind of like a plane that you would fly on if you're just going from place to place on like Southwest Airlines or something. So he was a crewman on that. He did that for 5 years and he got out. My mom, she was enlisted and she got into a program called Boost. Boost is a program where enlisted members can become an officer. So the Navy will send them to college. And during college, they would do ROTC. And after college, they will graduate and become an officer in the Navy. She did Boost. And actually, part of the reason we moved to Hampton, Virginia is because when she got accepted in the Boost, she went to Hampton University. And then she did college there and became an intel officer in the Navy after that. And my dad also, when we moved to Hampton, my dad also went to college at Hampton University, and that's where he finished college too. So.
Okay. So both of your parents, they joined after high school, the Navy?
Yeah, both of them joined directly after high school. Yep.
Okay.
Went to the Navy. And they both actually did their Navy training in Orlando, Florida, which had like a recruit base down there.
And did they know each other at the time when they were doing their training?
No, I think they didn't meet until they both got to Iceland.
Okay, so it's just a coincidence that's where they both did their training at.
Yeah.
So when your mother came to Jacksonville, had she been there before, like Jacksonville?
Yeah, I think she was stationed there before she went to Iceland. And obviously all my family on my mom's side is from Sanford, Florida. So it's not far away. It's right outside of Orlando. Do you know where Sanford is?
I do not.
Okay, so it's right outside of Orlando.
Okay.
About 30 minutes west of Orlando.
Okay. And how about your father when he came to Jacksonville? Was he familiar with Florida?
That was his first time in Florida.
Okay. When he was in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
Okay. So you moved around a lot in your childhood. Did you change schools often? Like, did you attend public school, private school? Were you homeschooled?
So, when I was in Hampton, Virginia, I did private school up until like first grade, I believe, and then I did public school from there on out in Virginia and in North Carolina. I guess I didn't move around that much. I think I moved around more when I was like a baby toddler. Yeah, and then from there, really the only two places I remember ever living is Hampton, Virginia, and Charlotte, North Carolina. So it's not like I moved around too much as far as I can remember. I just remember staying in Hampton, Virginia. I was in public school then, and then when I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, I was always in public school as well.
Okay. And then when you were moving...
Give you a correction. My mom was not an intel specialist enlisted. She was an aviation maintenance administration.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you were moving with both of your parents? Or was it just with your dad? Because you say your dad's from Charlottesville.
So my dad...
It's not Charlottesville, Charlotte.
Charlotte, North Carolina. My dad is from Wilmington, North Carolina.
Okay.
He's from Wilmington. He had a lot of friends in Charlotte when we did move here. That's why we moved here initially. He just wanted to be with his friends for a little bit, and we stayed here for a couple of years. But then when my mom got into Hampton University, in order for me to be around both of them at the same time. And I think they tried to work out the relationship. He moved up to Hampton, and we were together for a little bit, and he started going to school there. So.
Okay, so they did both attend Hampton at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you went to elementary school up until first grade in Hampton, a private school, and then you moved to Charlotte.
So up until third grade, I was in Hampton. I went to private school in Hampton until first grade.
Okay.
When first grade started, I was in public school until third grade. And after third grade was finished, after I completed third grade, we got in a U-Haul truck and moved down to Charlotte. And I've been in Charlotte from fourth grade to 12th grade.
Fourth grade to 12th grade in Charlotte in public school.
Charlotte, North Carolina, public school. Yep.
And did you notice much of a difference between Hampton and Charlotte?
Oh yeah, most definitely.
Do you remember?
Yeah, I mean Hampton. And we'll get into this later. I just moved up to DC from Norfolk, Virginia, which is right by Hampton. So I got to kind of go back and see a lot of the things that. I actually got to go back and see the house that we lived in. Got to see the school that I went to and all that stuff. Hampton is a really small town. It's mainly like a college town. People really only know Hampton because of Hampton University. And I mean, you do have things outside of there, but not much. It's not like a big city. If you think of somebody like yourself who's going to be a professional soon, you probably wouldn't think that would be like the place to move. People, when they think about going to a city and being a professional, you think about like the DC, Chicago's, New York, big cities, and for Miami. Think about those kind of places. So Hampton's not one of those places. So I remember a little bit about it. But I just remember it being very small town, like a small townish feel. When I got to Charlotte, and Charlotte wasn't a big city when I moved there, but it was definitely a city. It had like tall buildings, like skyscrapers. It had that type of downtown feel. It took you like 30 minutes to get from one end of the city to the other end of the city. So it was definitely a little different than growing. And the biggest difference, I think, that kind of reminds me of how small Hampton was because in Hampton, I would be able to walk or ride my bike to school in elementary school, like in second and third grade. Right. So that's how like small townish it was. I would never be able to do that in Charlotte in elementary school just because there were busy highways I had to cross to get to school. And it was just a lot of traffic going on. So that when I got to Charlotte was the first time I actually consistently rode the bus to school, because in Hampton I was able to go and ride the bike and walk with my friends, or my parents would pick me up, stuff like that. So
cool. So when you were in Hampton, you mostly walked or took a bike to school, and then when you were in Charlotte, you usually took the bus?
Mm-hmm. Took the bus every day in Charlotte.
Okay, cool. And as far as the dynamics of your school early on, was it a diverse school? Was it white people, black people, other races? Do you remember?
In Hampton?
Either Hampton or Charlotte.
Oh yeah, I think I went to pretty diverse schools at both places. I think it was an even mix. I feel like white, black. I wouldn't say Hispanic would have an even mix, but I think they had as much as you would expect. Asian. I don't think I ever went to like a predominantly black public school or a predominantly white public school. I think it was just pretty evenly mixed.
Okay. And then growing up early on, did you have a favorite subject in school?
Yeah, I think I did. My favorite subject, and so I really liked math growing up in elementary and middle school, but I think that kind of weaned off as I got to high school. And when I got to high school, I was really interested in computers. So anything that I can do with computers, whether it was a typing class, whether it was learning, like we used to have this like Microsoft workshop class where you learned about Excel and you learned about Word and all that stuff. But then I really got into the computer science classes. So we had computer programming, 1 and 2. We had computer science, AP, like those. Like I really enjoyed those classes. And I enjoyed them so much I would stay after school, and we used to create video games. And like I was one of those nerds like who would stay after and create video games with the other kids in computer science class. And the computer science teacher would be in there telling us how to do certain things, how to use Java and C++ and Visual Basic programs. Like it was some nerdy stuff, but I really enjoyed it.
So your interest in computers, what sparked it? Was it just the classes and just learning about them, or was it something else?
It was just, I don't know. It was just, I enjoyed doing it. It was one of the first times I went to class and was like, damn, I really enjoy what he's teaching, and I'm interested in what he's teaching.
Right.
And it kind of involved math too, because our programming, we used to use binary code. So a lot of binary code, you have to use math equations to understand what 001 means, or 01001. You have to actually understand that and actually do a mathematical equation to figure out what it actually is.
Right. That's cool. I have a friend who does computer programming, so I understand some of the terminology.
Yeah.
Now, being a African American and liking that computers in high school, did you ever get made fun of before that, or or did people see you as nerdy, or did
I think
anything like that?
I think I was kind of a nerd, and people kind of knew that. Like I was like one of those like kids who I like enjoy, especially in middle school. Like I enjoy doing my work. I enjoy like building a relationship with the teacher. And I wasn't into in middle school. I really wasn't into like a lot of things that the so-called cool kids were into. But I think my saving grace with those kids and like the popular population in schools was that I was also an athlete. So not only did I like computers and things like that, but I also played football, I played basketball, and I ran track. I did all 3 sports, and I did that every year until I graduated high school. So and I wasn't a bench rider either, so I actually played. So I mean, I think that kind of helped me out. And I think once I got to about 9th grade, probably 10th grade more so, I kind of started losing the persona of like a school nerd and kind of just started building my own path as somebody people enjoyed having around, and one of the kids who knew a lot of the other kids in the school. And my whole character changed as a 10th grader. I think 10th grade was my year where I like kind of formed into my own.
Right.
Yep.
That's awesome. So before we get to the sports and stuff, did your parents emphasize the education growing up? Or did they make sure you got good grades and stayed busy in school?
Oh yeah. A's and B's, it was like one of those things in the household with like A's and B's, and if you brought home a C, it's like we're gonna have a serious talk. I don't think I ever brought home a C in like elementary school or middle school. I might have brought 2 home in high school, and I did have that serious talk with my parents. But they definitely stressed it, and especially my mom. She really, even with me not being in the household and me not being in her household, when we would talk and I would go there on the holidays or summer break, she would definitely stress how important it was to make sure I was doing well. Now, especially when I got to high school, she wanted me to do well because she knew that was going to set me up in the future and help me get to where I wanted to be in life.
Cool.
Now my dad probably didn't stress it as much. I mean, he was on me, but as long as I was bringing home decent grades, he was happy. It was A's and B's, because I don't think my dad probably did that great at school. He wasn't expecting like to have geniuses as kids.
Right. So can you speak a little bit about what your relationship what your relationship with your mom was like while you were living with your father and during school and stuff? You spoke, a little bit to she made sure you wanted to get good. She made sure that you got good grades because she wasn't, there with you.
Yeah. So so my mom, the main reason why I was with my dad was because my mom was still in the Naval service. So as an officer in the Navy, as an intel officer, she was deploying still. She was moving from place to place. She was going to different areas, and her schedule was just never set. So it was probably best for me to be with my dad. And additionally, because I'm a boy, it was going to be a man, so I think it was great for me to be with him in the long run, anyways. But when she would go, the thing about my mom, and I say this all the time, like the difference was my dad kind of taught me. Not only did he teach me how to be a man, but he taught me like what it was to be a family man, how to raise a family, and how to take up responsibility. My mom kind of taught me. She taught me like how to go. How my mom taught me what to look for in life and how to go after more than what may be expected of you in life, and how there's so much more than what you see in front of you every day. And without her, I probably wouldn't have seen the things that she's kind of introduced me to. But she would call me when she would be away in different countries. She would call me, like she would be in, I remember specifically, she'd be like in Jerusalem, and she would send a postcard in Jerusalem and call me from Jerusalem and talk to me about like what was in Jerusalem and talk to me about the things that she visited, or she may be in Egypt and she would call me or send a postcard and talk to me about that. And it would just show me that, dang, you can go out and travel, you can go out and see these things. We're not constrained to just this country. We're not constrained to just what's in front of us. And then, I'll talk to a little bit about her career moving forward when we go further in this interview. But in her career moving forward, like she's introduced me to a lot of people who influential people, not only in the local community, but nationally. She's introduced me to people who have changed laws, who have been instrumental in civil rights, she's introduced me to multimillionaires. Like she's introduced me to a lot of different people who I've been able to gain knowledge from, and be able to appreciate that, like we're not constrained again to what we've been raised with, or what has been placed in front of us as a child or as an adolescent.
Right. Awesome. So I guess you just spoke a little bit to it. Overall, what do you think your experience was like being, raised by two parents who were both in the Navy? Do you think it hindered you? Do you think it helped you? Do you think it, gave you a different outlook or perspective on life than maybe people who parents were not in the Navy service or the military?
Well, I mean,
this from.
my parents weren't in the Navy long. So my mom, she got out of the Navy probably when I was about 7, 8 years old, maybe.
Okay.
6, 7, somewhere around there. I don't know. And then I think it's about 7, maybe 8. But my dad was, he wasn't in the Navy for more than 5 years. So when I was about 2 years old, he was out already. So I didn't really grow up with them being in the military. I think the military instilled a level of discipline in them and a level of focus in them that definitely probably helped them raise a kid and raise a child like myself. They probably, taught them responsibility, a little more about responsibility that they may not have had. But it's also guided them to be able to guide me to get to where I'm at today, because I'm in the Navy right now. And a lot of things that when I was considering going into the Navy, a lot of the questions that I had, they were able to answer for me, and they were able to offer some comfort when I had concerns.
Perfect. So we're going to segue back.
I was going to say that. So those are my only two parents. I like to say I'm a product of 3 parents. I have a stepmother as well, who has been married to my dad since we moved back to Charlotte. When I was 8 years old, they got married in '94, and my stepmother, I don't even call her, I call her mom too. That's my mom. So right. I mean, she has played a major part in my life as well. And I think I talk about all parents have like these different roles. I talk about my dad's role and my biological mom's role. With my stepmom, she played like a spiritual role in my life. Like she taught me what faith was. She taught me how to pray. She taught me how to believe that there's a higher source to you that you can always look to when you do feel like you may be down, or you feel like you need an extra kick or extra boost in life. And she just taught me what a strong woman was as well, and what a mother and a wife should look like too. And I think, I'll always appreciate her for that.
Awesome. So your stepmom, that's the mother of your younger 2 siblings?
Correct.
Okay. Also, can you mention your both your mother's names?
Oh
Your
yeah,
father's name is Kevin Edwards, right?
yeah. So my biological mom's name is Natalie Alita Jackson, and my stepmother's name is Joanne Bowser Edwards.
Perfect. So earlier you talked about playing sports in high school. When did you get involved in those sports? You said you played football, basketball, and track.
hmm So
Do you remember what age?
yeah, I've been involved in sports since I was probably 4 or 5 years old. Started off with soccer, then went at Hampton, like when I was 6 in Hampton, might have been 7, like right before we moved my second and third grade year. I started playing Pee Wee football. Um, and then I kept playing football all throughout, elementary school, middle school, and high school. And then kind of grew on the basketball and the track kind of grew on to football. So as I went.
Cool, cool. So, during elementary, middle school, or high school, did you ever think about becoming a lawyer or going to law school?
Yeah, so this is the interesting part about my mom. So um, my mom, the only reason I really knew anything about being a lawyer was because she was a lawyer. She
Oh,
went
okay.
after she left the naval service. So obviously she went to Hampton University. She went and did 4 years as an intel officer. And then she decided, because she knew she always wanted to be a lawyer. That was what she always wanted to do. So she did 4 years as an officer in active service, and she applied to law school, and she went to University of Florida Law School.
Uh,
So she went there before I did, and she graduated in. I graduated in '99 or 2000. One of them, can't remember. Um, So she went a little older. She went to law school, I think, when she was about 28 and graduated when she was probably about 31, um, maybe a little older than that. So I can't remember the exact dates, so don't quote me on those. But yeah, she went to law school, and after law school, she had a lot of different offers. Her mom was very smart. She had a lot of different offers for different places, and she was about to take like a big law firm job down in Miami, I believe. This is a story that she tells me all the time. And my grandmother called her and said, "Hey, are you sure you want to take a big law job? Do you want to? We can help you open up your own firm here in Sanford, Florida." So my mom thought about it, and she went and opened up her own firm right after law school, which she will always tell you was her biggest mistake. And was doing that because she just wasn't ready to handle the business aspect of it, and she had to learn a lot on the fly. So she went to Sanford, Florida, opened up her own firm. She did that for a few years with one of her classmates named Siddiqui Alexander. Siddiqui and her graduated together, and they opened up the firm Jackson and Alexander down in Sanford, and it was good because my whole family was down in Sanford, so the business came pretty rapidly. She was never short on business, but the thing that she will always tell me is that actually when they had to close the firm down, the building was probably the best investment they had, because the building that they bought for the business, they ended up making a lot of money on it. So that was probably where they made the most money, not being a lawyer, but actually on the real estate. But
right.
so I used to, during the summer times, I used to go into the office every summer. I would do work with them, whatever they needed. Did they need me to file things? Did they need me to wait on on clients? Did they need me to run errands for them? I would go to court with them. Like, I was around lawyers as a kid, and my mom would always tell you, after a few summers, I would tell her, I'm not going to be a lawyer. Like, this is not what I do. I was into computers at that time, and I really thought I was going to do something with computers and engineering. Um, I just told her that's not what I'm going to do. But I did enjoy working there during the summers. And one, I got to spend time with my mom, but two, I thought it was pretty cool being able to interact with all the clients that she had come through. And and just see the people who worked in the office. And she had interns in that office too. She would take high school kids and bring them in as interns. So I made friends with a couple of those people as well. So no, like being a lawyer was not anything I saw at that time. This is something I think that happened later on in life when I decided to become a lawyer.
Okay. Cool, cool. And your dad doesn't have a legal background, does
No, he doesn't. My dad, my dad has worked quite a few jobs. He's done a few different things, but he's also worked as a correctional officer in a jail before. So that's probably like the only legal background that he has as a sheriff's deputy, correction officer.
And I was going to segue a little to your undergraduate experience. Is there anything else you want to touch on as far as early childhood or high school experiences?
I think I'm probably when you go to the undergrad, I could probably bounce back and then come.
Okay.
Because I think my undergrad experience is I'm gonna have to bounce back to high school to talk about how I got there.
Okay, perfect. So where did you attend undergrad at, and what year did you begin?
So I attended undergrad at the United States Naval Academy, and I started 2007 there.
The United States Naval Academy is a very tough school to get into, correct?
It is.
What was that process like, applying and getting in?
So it's a very tough process. Now, I had a little different route in how I got there. And I'm going to take you back a little bit because I told you how I played football and stuff in high school. So actually in high school, when I told you 10th grade, I kind of came into my identity a little bit. I kind of started growing as a person, growing as a student, growing as an athlete as well. And I became pretty good at both football and track.
Okay.
I started, and my focus started moving away from the computers and started being towards like lifting weights and going out with trainers and trying to advance my skills in order so I can be the best I could be at these sports. So in high school, I became a captain of the football team junior and senior year. I was a captain of the track team junior and senior year. I won state championships in track. Like I was doing pretty well on both sides, and I had a lot of, especially with track. I mean, track. I had a lot of offers to go to schools in track. There was NC State, there was ECU, there was South Carolina, Clemson. There was a lot of places who really wanted me to come to school to run track for them. The thing was, well, a lot of people will tell me this, I was always better at track, and that's what I should have did, but my heart was with football. And I probably wasn't as good of a football player as I was a track runner. I was getting recruited in football, but not by the schools that I was just listed there for track. In football, it was more like the Davidsons, a couple of HBCU, a couple smaller D2 schools, and other D1, what they call D1 AA back then, which is now FCS or whatever. But and NC State, they were supposed to come through and offer me, and they never did because they lost their coach. So I held out this whole time. I said, you know what? Look, I'm not committed to any school right now because I still think there's something left out there. And come to know it, January senior year of high school, the Naval Academy came knocking on the door and said, hey, how would, the coach saw my film. He said, how would you like to attend the Naval Academy? At this time, I knew nothing about the Naval Academy. I didn't know really what it was. I'm just thinking like like playing football for the Navy. What does that even mean? So the coaches, the high school coaches, had to sit me down and talk to me. They showed me like the games that Navy played. They played some big teams, some big name teams. They were D1. It was good football. My dad talked to me about it because obviously my mom were in the Navy. They knew all about the Naval Academy. My mom knew Naval Academy graduates, and they said, let's just take a visit and see what happens. We took a visit up there to Annapolis, and I fell in love with it. It was a beautiful campus. I liked what they stood for. I liked everything that they talked about at the campus. I liked the team that was there, everybody that I interacted with, the people who were the guys who were taking me out at nighttime. I had a good time with them. It just felt like a family there. And after that visit, I decided to commit to Naval Academy, and I signed a letter of intent, and that's how I got there. I did have to submit an application, but I didn't have to go through getting the senator and or congressman recommendation. I didn't have to go through the blue and gold interviews. I didn't have to go through all those intermediate steps. It was kind of just like got a football scholarship there, and I was, they kind of got me through in some back way, I guess. So without me having to do all that stuff myself, they get like a certain number of presidential appointees for athletics and stuff like that. So I guess we're not technically on scholarship because everybody there is on scholarship, but you just get if you get recruited for a sport there, you just get like a presidential appointment to the Naval Academy. So that's what I got. I went to the Naval Academy, and that's how I ended up there. It's really because of football. And, other than that, I would have never known anything about the Naval Academy.
All right, cool. So can you take it back one time, and can you say where you went to high school at?
Yeah, I went to high school at this place called Zebulon B. Vance High School. It's in Charlotte, North Carolina.
You said Zebulon and B. Vance?
Yeah, Zebulon B as in boy.
Oh, B.
Vance High School. So people just call it Vance, but the whole name of it is Zebulon B. Vance. He was a prior governor of the state of North Carolina.
Okay, cool. And you played football and track. What position did you play in football, and what did you run in track?
So in football, I was the starting quarterback for my high school team for 3 years, sophomore through senior year. And in track, I was a 400 runner, and I would run the 100 and the 200, but my event was the 400.
400.
And that's what I specialized in. Now, when I got to college at the Naval Academy, I actually ran track and football there my first year, and then I just did football after that. But I did not play quarterback. They moved me to defense, and I started playing cornerback. So I started playing the other side of the ball.
Okay. And was there a reason why you didn't want to continue on with track and football? Was it just too much?
Well, so it could have been one or two things. So one may have been like I saw other guys on the football team getting like schools that were offering them big time schools, and part of me was like, they can do it, I can do it too. And I felt like maybe I was being overlooked, and I kind of had a chip on my shoulder and wanted to prove people that I'm not just a track runner. Like I could play football, and I could play it at the highest level too.
Yeah.
And then part of me was just like, yeah, track was I just happened to be good at track, but I didn't love it. Like it wasn't anything I saw myself going forward with, because I didn't think people were really interested in track in college. And I didn't think that was something that I was going to stick with. I knew I would stick with football.
Right. So that was the reason why you didn't continue on with track in college?
No, so in college I did want to keep running track as long as I was playing football. But I think it was outdoor track my freshman year. I pulled my hamstring, and the football coach told me that that's enough. You're here for us, so we're gonna pull you from track team, and don't. So I never asked again after that. I just stopped.
Okay. And then you attended the Naval Academy from, you said 2010?
2007 to 2011.
Oh, 2007, 2011. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then
and I graduated high school in 2006, but 2006 to 2007, I went to a place called the Naval Academy Preparatory School. So I went to a prep school in Rhode Island.
Rhode Island. And then where is the Naval Academy at?
In Annapolis, Maryland.
And then can you speak to what other activities you were involved in college? Were you involved in anything else? Was it just football? I know it's rigorous, the coursework.
Yeah, the coursework is very rigorous, and I actually didn't do as well of a job as I probably could have or should have when I was at the Naval Academy. because I was so focused on football and completely forgot about the other half of the word student athlete. I was just an
Right.
athlete and not trying to be a student. I was trying to be good enough to not be ineligible to play football anymore, but I wasn't trying to do anything more really. And part of
Right.
it is because it's very demanding days there. I mean, you wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning, you're going to class all day, and in between class, I'm going to film at lunchtime. After classes in the afternoon, I'm going to the weight room. After the weight room, I'm going to practice. After practice, I'm going to look at more film. By the time I eat dinner and get back to my room, it's like 7:30 at night, 8 o'clock at night maybe. And I just didn't feel like doing anything.
Right.
So, and then talking about getting back up again, 6:30 in the morning. I mean, it was a grind. So, I lost focus of the school aspect, and I lost focus with what was going to come after school, and I definitely didn't do as well as I should have.
Right. Okay. So so it's basically just football and that track for the 1 year. Those are the other like extracurriculars that you participated in
Yeah,
college.
I didn't do too many extracurriculars outside of that.
Okay. And then can you speak to the dynamic of the Naval Academy? What was the student body like? Was it composed of, you know, a good mix of races?
Yeah, so definitely not a good mix of races. That was one of the first times I've been in a school where, yeah, I mean, definitely the majority of the school was white males. That's just what you saw there. I think they're doing a little better now. I think it's like 30% women at the school now and 70% male. But when I was there, that number definitely wasn't that high. And I'm not sure about the number of black students that were there at the time, but I'm trying to think. Where they split the school up into 30 companies, and I think in my freshman, I was in 14th company there, and out of the freshman in 14th company, I was the only black person in that freshman class. Yeah,
Okay.
I think I can safely
And
say. Yeah. So in that
in
company, so in other
in
companies,
that company.
yeah, in that company. Now, other companies there were more black people, but in my company, out of the freshmen in my company, I was the one black person. So
Male or female?
male or female. Yeah.
And when you say company, is it like a section almost?
Yeah. So there's about 1,000 people per class. So 1,000 people, 1,000 freshmen, 1,000 sophomores, 1,000 juniors, 1,000 seniors, and they
Okay.
split up each class into companies. So like, say a 14th company, the company I was in, you might have 70 seniors, 70 juniors, 70 sophomores, and then 70 freshmen. And then in 15th or 16th company, they'll have that same number of people. But you kind of in your company, you kind of do everything in that school together. You go and eat together in that company. You do a lot of the school events in that company. At the Naval Academy, there's like, it's hazing. Not really. It's not supposed to be hazing, but like the seniors and juniors kind of beat up on the freshmen there, and the upperclassmen beat up on the underclassmen, and like
Right.
you kind of get that treatment within your company. So your company is in charge of molding you into like the midshipman that you're supposed to be as you rise up in the brigade.
So the companies weren't just split by class. It was all the classes together.
Yeah, all the classes together. So we had if I'm class of 2011, my freshman year, we had class of 2010 in that company. We had class of 2009 and class 2008. And then the
Okay.
class of 2008, their senior year, they would be in charge of all the classes below them within that company. So they would be in charge of the 70 juniors, the 70 sophomores, and the 70
Okay.
freshmen in that company at the time.
And you say you were the only black person in your class. Did you feel it? Did you have experiences that made you, notice it more? Did you experience any type of racism there or discrimination while you're at the academy?
So outward racism, no, I don't think so. Implicit, Yes, probably. I think, you know, I think there may have been a stigma there, especially of Black athletes, that hey, we didn't belong there, that we didn't get there the same way everybody else got there, and we don't have the qualifications or the merits to stand on the same ground as they standing on. And I think that may make some people there look at you a little differently and possibly treat you a little differently as well. Now, I'm trying to think back. I don't think there was anybody that outwardly expressed any racism towards me, but I would never know if the things that people did there were were caused by racism or not. For instance, I remember coming back to my room one day, and they have these things called room inspections where your bed has to be made a certain way. I'm talking about like it's so exact. They would take a ruler and measure the sheets and the blankets on your bed. And if your bed was not, if it wasn't cuffed, like if the sheets weren't cuffed over the blankets 6 inches exactly, they could tear your bed apart. So I remember coming into my room one time and seeing literally my bed and mattress flipped on the ground, my computer on its face, my books just kind of thrown, like it looked like somebody just took the books that were on my bookshelf and just slid them off the bookshelf and threw them on the ground. The room was a mess. And the only bed that was touched was my bed. There wasn't my two roommates who were white guys, obviously at the time. Their beds weren't touched. And maybe they had it made up correctly. Maybe mine was messed up. But in that environment, I couldn't help but think that, are they doing this because of the color of my skin? Or are they doing this just because they're really trying to train me to be a better midshipman? And knowing me, like I didn't know what it was, so as a lawyer, I didn't know I was gonna be a lawyer at that time. I'm investigating, like, what can I find? What can I find to get back at this guy? And what I found my Bible on the floor, and I was like, oh, I'm about to use this against him. So I went and told the head officer of the class, hey, I understand we're in a training environment, but the people that cross the line when they throw religious material on the floor, I found my Bible on the floor out of this. So next thing I know, whoever did it that day came and offered an apology. But it's like little small things like that. You would never know if they're doing it based off of race or not. And there were things like that that probably happened throughout my time at the Naval Academy. But I would never be able to say for sure that it was because of race.
Right. And was that experience your first year?
Yeah, that was my first year at the Naval Academy. Yeah.
Okay. And speaking of racist experiences, have you experienced those growing up? Like, do you remember the earliest one you experienced growing up in Virginia or Charlotte? Or has your parents spoke to any racist experience in the Navy that they?
Yeah. My dad definitely has racist experiences. Yeah. I don't know if I've ever experienced any outward racism, like explicit racism. I don't know if I've ever experienced that. And I would have to think about that some more, but I'm not sure I have. Now, my dad has always told me the story when he was in the Navy in Iceland, or was it Maine? It was either Maine or Iceland. Well, it might have been Maine. But in Maine, he was walking down the street, about to go out, and there were two white Marines who were walking across the street from him, and one of them shouted out and called him a nigger. And he told me that, and I know my dad, his temper is a lot quicker than mine. So what he did, he ran across the street and he beat both of them pretty badly. Yep, to the point where they had to go to the hospital, and he went to jail for it. But my great aunt Sandra, she's passed away, but she lived in New York. She sent money to bail him out, and then called him after he got bailed out and paid for his court fees. And he didn't get in trouble with the Navy for this, but after she after she bailed him out, he got done with everything like that. She called him and told him, she's like, I'm not mad at you, and if anybody else ever calls you a nigga again, you do the same thing. So, so like, I've never had that experience, but I get to hear about that through my dad. I get to hear about it through my mom's mom, Miss Francis, who I haven't talked about her, but she's a civil rights activist down in Sanford, Florida right now.
Okay.
My mom is a civil rights attorney, so I hear about these things all the time, and I see these things, and I'm constantly reminded that you're not invincible to this happening to you. No, I don't think I've experienced it yet. If I have, then I haven't been able to point to it, but
Right.
I know it's out there, and
Right.
I'm definitely aware of it.
Okay. And then do you know what year that was with your father?
Before I was born, so I would say like 86, 80, 85, 86.
Okay, so like the late 80s.
Yeah, late 80s.
Okay. Now transitioning back to the Naval Academy, you said you were the only, black male, and there was a stigma with the black athletes. Did you guys tend to stick together? Did you guys hang out together, or were you able to, or what was your friend group like there?
Yeah, definitely. So now today, three of my best friends are probably from the Naval Academy today.
Okay.
Two of them are black men who came from Atlanta, Georgia, and they just happened to play football with me, and we just have remained really close to this day. One of them will be my best man at my wedding next year. Like, so, that's how close we are. And then um, the other one, the third guy is a white guy, and he came from Syracuse, New York, but he was my roommate all 3 years at the Naval Academy. So like, I hung out with both groups. Like John is the white guy, my roommate. I've hung out with him several times at the academy, and me and him have gone out. And I've also hung out with Wyatt and Emmett, who are like the two football teammates of mine, and we would hang out. But like yes, definitely, because I will say this, at the academy, probably the most amount of black people that you were going to find in one place are probably on like the basketball team or football team. It just happens to be that way. Like, to find a good amount of black people at one spot at the same time, go to the football locker room, there's going to be a lot of them there. So the good thing about that was that when I had experiences like I had when that one time when they flipped my room upside down and everything, I had upperclassmen in my company who were black guys who were on the football team who I was able to go to and talk to, and they were able to kind of handle that situation for me when I couldn't necessarily handle it to myself, being a freshman at the Naval Academy. So yeah, we definitely did stick together, and we were able to help each other out whenever we encountered instances like that.
Cool. So transitioning to law school, when did you first, get the idea that you wanted to go to law school?
Probably junior year at the Naval Academy. I started taking, like I said, I didn't want to be a lawyer before, but then I guess as there are constant evolutions in my life where I grew and kind of grew out of things and grew into other things. And I think junior year in college was when I said I wanted to take some law classes, and I took criminal law, and I took I had to take military law, which was a required course. And I took those classes and actually enjoyed those classes. Like I told you, at the Naval Academy, I probably wasn't the best student. I probably did the subpar. I did subpar work and just, got by. But those classes I actually tried. I enjoyed it, and it actually got me interested in what I was doing. So at that point, I said, hey, law school might not be a bad idea for me. So that's when I started thinking about it, junior year, after I took those classes.
Okay. And before we get to law school, both of your parents went to Hampton University, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Which is a HBCU, correct?
Yep.
Is there did you have interest in going to a HBCU?
Yeah,
Out of
definitely.
that?
I applied to Howard, North Carolina A&T. I think I might have applied to Hampton even. So I
Okay.
definitely had interest in going to to a HBCU at one point or another. It just didn't work. It just didn't work out that way. And I just found better fits at other places. But yeah,
Okay.
I wasn't opposed to it at all.
Okay. Cool. And then as for the law school application process, what was it like for you? Did you only apply to the U.S.? Did you know you wanted to go to U.S. or what was that experience like?
Yeah, so my law school path was a little different. So I went to after the Naval Academy. Obviously, we have a 5-year commitment in the Navy after we go to
Mm-hmm.
the Naval Academy.
Mm,
Um, However, they have this program in the Navy where once you do 2 years as an officer outside the Navy, you're allowed to apply to a program that will send you to law school and pay for your law school and also give you your salary, which is pretty cool while you're in law school. And you just have to, once you finish, you just owe them 6 years back in the military as a Navy JAG officer.
okay.
So it's a very competitive program, and they only select like 3 to 4 people a year out of all the officers in the country. And I decided my senior year after talking to a few JAGs that I was very interested in applying. Like I enjoyed being an officer in the Navy. So I said, this might be a good opportunity for me to get into law school and not have to pay for it.
Right.
So I I did 2 years and taking during this time I was thinking like it's no way I'm gonna get into this program because like I said I was a subpar student. I was not good at the Naval Academy. I mean I definitely was. I was trying to push a 2.5 there. Like it wasn't
Yeah.
like I was a great student at all. So I did 2 years in the Navy as a surface warfare officer, which is where I was on a ship and we would go from San Diego to Bahrain. I would stay in San Diego for 6 months, fly to Bahrain, and Bahrain's a country in the Middle East, right beside Saudi Arabia. It's like a little island in the Persian Gulf, and I would
Okay.
fly out there for 6 months, and then I'll fly back to San Diego for 6 months, then fly to Bahrain for 6 months, and I did that for 2.5 years. And because as soon as my 2 year mark hit, that's when I applied to get into this program. And I just applied not thinking that I was going to get in. I applied thinking that if I was going to have to apply again, because usually that's what I hear. You apply once, they reject you and see how serious you are. They want you to keep applying.
Mm-hmm.
And you have until year 6 in order to get in. So it's only for officers between the 2nd year in the Navy and the 6th year in the Navy. But I applied right at 2 years. Didn't think I was going to get in. But at that time, once you applied, you also had to start, even without knowing whether you was going to get accepted into the program, you had to start applying to law schools too.
Mm-hmm.
So I started applying to law schools. And I did decent on the LSAT, which I think saved me. Like I actually studied for the LSAT, unlike I didn't study for anything ever in college, but I
Right.
studied for the LSAT, did pretty well, and I started applying to all different law schools. So I selected based off of prestige and location. Those are like my two things. I was like, look, I'm gonna take like the shot that everybody takes, a lot of people take, and try to get in one of these Harvard, Yale, or Stanford.
Yeah.
So I was like, let me apply to Harvard. So I applied to Harvard, and then I said, it would be good to be down in Florida with my family because I grew up in North Carolina. I didn't really get to spend a lot of time with my family in Florida, and it'd be good to be around my mom. So let me apply to a couple schools in Florida. So I applied to Miami, Florida, and Florida State. And then I said it'll also be good to be close to Charlotte too. So let me go ahead and apply to some schools in North Carolina. And I applied to Wake Forest, Carolina, and Duke. So those are the schools I applied to. And I remember I remember Harvard rejected me quick. They were like, hell no. And they probably looked at my undergraduate transcript. Like, hell no. And then I got into all the Florida schools, Florida State, Miami, and Florida. I got into Wake Forest. I think I got a waitlist at Duke, and then got into North Carolina. Can't remember if I got rejected or on a waitlist at Duke, one of them. And so then it came down to the Navy decided. So the Navy had say in this too. Like once they called me and said I was accepted into the program, I was like, oh, bet, like this is great. I didn't think I was gonna get accepted, but I'm ready to go. But now they have a say. They tell you, hey, give me your top 3 law schools. that you want to go to, and then they choose based on how close the school is to a base, the tuition amount for the school, and then they choose on the school's prestige as well of like where they're going to send you. So my top three were Wake Forest was number one. I think I did Florida number two, and actually I couldn't do Carolina yet because Carolina had me on the wait list, so I couldn't do Carolina yet. And then what was number three? I think probably Florida State was number three, maybe. I don't know. But it came down to Wake Forest and Florida, and I really wanted to be in Wake Forest. Now, at this time, what we haven't talked about is I had a son in 2012. So he was born in 2012. I went to law school in 2014, and he was born in Charlotte, and he lived in Charlotte ever since he was born. So I thought that I was, going to Wake Forest, which is 45 minutes away from Charlotte, would be good so I could be close to him too. But they called and said, nope, you're going to go to Florida. Tuition is a lot less. You can get in-state tuition there. Wake Forest is a private school, and you'll be next to Jacksonville, Florida as well at UF. So I was like, cool. It didn't matter to me. I was like, cool. I just get to go to my mom's alma mater. I'm fine with that. Right. I'll be right up the road from where she is. And I was like, that's fine with me. So next thing I know, I put in my seat deposit, and I was going to Florida that fall.
Awesome. And this was fall of 2014?
Mm-hmm.
Now, what was your experience overall? I guess what was your experience like at UF Law?
Oh man, I enjoyed UF Law a lot. I joke with people all the time that was my college experience. Like I didn't get a college experience at the Naval Academy. And I tell people like UF was my college experience, but I really enjoyed it because I felt like I was trying to be the student that I wasn't at the Naval Academy. Like I actually tried in my classes. I tried to attend teachers' hours and stuff like that. I tried to actually do my readings and my homework and stuff. I try to do the best I can in order to be the best student I could there. And part of it was probably because I didn't have the extracurricular, like such a stringent extracurricular like football to worry about.
Right.
But, I had a great experience, great instructors, great professors, extracurriculars that I did. I really enjoyed. I enjoyed the classmates that I had. I enjoyed the people I got to meet, and I enjoyed like the internships and experiences I got from UF too. So I don't have any complaint about Florida at all.
Cool. And then can you speak to what extracurriculars you were involved in while you're here at UF Law?
Yeah. So UF Law, I tried to get a lot more involved than I did when I was at the Naval Academy. So I was on I don't know if y'all still have this. I was on the honor committee or whatever. Okay. I was involved with BOLSA every year. And crazy because my mom was when she was there, she was like vice president of BOLSA, I think she was. And then when I was with BOLSA, I was the social chair of BOLSA just because I wanted to make sure everybody had a good time. And I just like seeing Black people get together, enjoying one another's time, and being able to have something that we can relate with one another outside of like the law school itself. Right. So I really enjoyed doing that and throwing events for our group. I was on trial team at UF, did that. I was part of the Military Law Association. I was part of student ambassadors. What else did I do? I did a lot of stuff at UF.
You were very involved.
Yeah, I was very involved at UF. Yeah. John Marshall Bar Association, which is that. Now that's one thing. Y'all don't have John Marshall Bar Association anymore. They call it JUMBA. I don't know if you ever heard of that, but they call it the student bar. I think it's the SBA now, right?
Yeah.
So and I'm gonna tell you why it changed, because JUMBA. Now, if there was one complaint about UF Law, it was JUMBA. And JUMBA was this organization where kids you came your first year of law school, and it's kind of like you did a tryout where you went to their event and then you did an interview in front of everybody in JUMBA, and then they selected you based on like how well they liked you. Now, JUMBA is also an organization that back in the day would not allow Black people to be in. George W. Allen was not allowed to be in Jumba during his time. And we've actually had conversations with him, and he tells us about this all the time. He wasn't allowed to be in Jumba. When I came in, there was one Black person in Jumba out of 40 or probably 50 members, 50, 55 members. So what it actually was to me was this like elitist group of white people who wanted to maintain a super majority in an organization that is well known in law school. Because if you go to any federal judge that came from U.S., any U.S. attorney, high level politician that came from U.S. law, they all know about John Marshall Bar Association, and usually most of them were a part of John Marshall Bar Association. And the thing was, I said, I'm gonna go be a part of this too, because I'm not gonna miss out on having the experience that these other guys, so you think about it back in the day, if George W. Allen couldn't do it, like he got to do some things, but he still stayed at UF so he could set that groundwork for all of us. And I felt like, it was our job, my generation and, the generations that come after us, it's our job to build on that. So when I came in there and I saw it was only one person, yeah, it was kind of like, something may be iffy about this, but at the same time, I wanted to make sure I did my part to try to build on that and try to get others involved in it as well. So I went after it and I interviewed and did my little thing, and they selected me, and they only selected one other Black person as well, and his name was it's Kelly. I can't remember Kelly's last name, but Kelly is actually George W. Allen's great nephew.
Really?
Yeah. So me and Kelly were in there together, and then we had one other guy who was older than us, Nick Camille. Now there was a lot of talk about Jumba not being diverse. People would talk about that all the time. And Jumba they were the people who organized the parties. They organized student events. They were representatives when they would when we had to get a new dean. Jumba were the people who selected the student representatives to go see the deans and the new professors. They were basically the student body at the school. But the Black people were not getting involved because they were like, I'm not dealing with this, this white fraternity, basically. I don't want to be a part of that. It was just kind of, Black people were just dismissing it because they just was like, that group is not for us. They're not looking out for our best interests, and there's nothing we're going to be able to do to kind of get our foot in and change their viewpoints, because they've been viewing U.S. law school and been viewing the way we do things at this law school a certain way for a very long time. So Black people just weren't involved with Jumba. Right. Now, I remember my second year, I tried to run for, and I don't know what this was either. Like I said, I've never been explicit racism, but I can just point to certain things. So my second year, I ran for basically, which was like the VP of Jumba, because I wanted to take over as president of Jumba my third year. And I'll tell you what happened. My second year, I put my name in. They came in and said, hey, who they do elections. Put your name in for whatever position you want to be. You couldn't put in for president as a second-year law student. You can only be third-year law student to be president. So I put in for the VP gig. And when you put your name in, or somebody has to nominate you. Somebody nominated me for VP. I don't know who it was, but then you have to go give a speech in front of the whole John Marshall Bar Association. When speeches came up, I had my speech prepared and everything like that. These mugs just didn't call my name up there. They just didn't call. They had called everybody up. They just did not call my name.
Really?
Didn't even have my name on the list to come give a speech. Like I said, I don't know what that was. Maybe they actually missed out, but I'm putting two to two together. I'm like, that just doesn't make any sense. So I approached them afterwards and I said, hey, my name was in there to give a speech today and you guys didn't call my name. What's up with that? And they was like, oh, we didn't know, blah, blah, blah. We're going to have you do a speech right before voting at the next meeting. So at the next meeting, they get up and they say, hey, we accidentally missed over one more candidate for the VP of Student Services or whatever, and he's going to give a speech now. So then I had to go give a speech right before voting, and gave my speech, comes back, they do the voting at the school, and he calls me like 2 days later and is like, hey, Kevin, you came up just short of the VP gig for student services, and but we still want to offer you some other gig. He said, you still get to relate with the students and all. And my whole speech was basically about diversifying John Marshall Bar Association, bringing in people like Bolsa and what do you call it, Elsa and all them, bringing these kids in to be a part of it, like making sure. And my whole platform was like, hey, we're gonna give Bolsa they get one automatic seat on the John Marshall Bar Association. Elsa gets one automatic seat. We're going to give all these different diverse clubs one automatic seat on the Bar Association, one automatic representative to help us diversify a little bit. And then that will attract more diverse people to come and interview at the beginning of the year when you're trying to get people in. But they didn't want that. So, they came up and said, you fell just short of it. And I got that call. After I got that call, I was done with Jumbo, man. So I told them, I'm no longer gonna be part of Jumbo, all this stuff. I didn't do it right after that, but I came up with something that was like, look, I got other stuff to worry about. I'm not gonna be involved with Jumbo anymore. But soon after that, people started protesting against Jumbo. They were going to the dean's office, saying a bunch of stuff about Jumbo. Jumbo did like the Woodser, where you go in the back of the woods and party. They still do that now?
Yeah.
Okay. You think about it, like, come on, like, you go back to a bunch of white people and party. Like, I went back there, I was part of the Jumbo, but if you think about it, like, that's like some old, you know what I'm saying? So, a lot of people just didn't, and then they would get certain people to come play music. They didn't play the music. They weren't trying to be diverse with the music. They just weren't trying to be diverse with any of their events. So that's why Jumbo went away. Jumbo was the Student Bar Association, and they changed Jumbo. I don't know what the Student Bar Association looks like because they started after I left, the year after I left, but it's supposed to be a lot more diverse and all that stuff. But now, they got rid of that because the administration that came in, the new dean and all that stuff, they didn't like the fact, even if Jumbo didn't explicitly stand for, being racist and being bigots and all this, they didn't like the fact that this organization was around when people actually did believe in that stuff. And it kind of infested itself to in that association, that stigma kind of grew as the time went on and stuck around. And I think people got too comfortable with that organization looking like it always looked and not being able to accept other people coming in the group. I don't know. I just kind of got off topic, but I just wanted to talk about it.
You're good. Yeah, let it out, man. Let it out. I mean, I'm surprised they even allowed a selection process, right, for a law school group. When you talk about just con law and stuff, it doesn't make sense. So they had a selection process while you were here at UF Law.
Mm-hmm.
You know when they went away with that selection process?
So right when this Student Bar Association was made, my senior year, my 3L year, was when they started organizing Student Bar Association. And the next year, so I think 2018 was the first year that they had the Student Bar Association, I want to say. And that's when everything changed. But before then, the only Student Bar Association we had was John Marshall Bar Association. And that's how they ran things. They brought people in and they elected who they wanted to be in the organization, and they did it based off of these in-face interviews amongst the whole group and based off of what they thought about you when you came out to their event.
I will say they do still have something like that, but it's not so much a selection process now. Now anyone could be a part of Jumbo, but they kind of do have a selection process for the people who want to apply for their leadership roles. And I would say that Jumbo still has, we still have problems with Jumbo. Bossa and Jumbo don't really get along right now. And the SBA is more diverse right now. There's a lot more, it's more representative of the whole student body, SBA now.
Good, that's good. but now the SBA runs all that stuff now. Like it's not Jumba. So how it used to be was Jumba running everything on the law school campus.
Right. So SBA does still like run that, but Jumbo is such a powerful group on campus. Probably the most powerful group on campus. So they hold a lot of weight in certain things. So it is the SBA, but Jumbo has a lot of say so in a lot of things. I don't get it, but that helps me to understand why a little bit. So moving on from Jumbo, Bossa, what was your experience like with Bossa while you were while you're at UF Law? Do you remember your president?
Yeah, so I went through, my first year was Brian Lawrence. He's down in is he Orlando? I think he's in Orlando right now.
He's in Orlando, yeah.
And second year, it was Candace Spencer.
Yeah.
She's up here in DC with me. Was she second year or third year? Yeah, she was second year. Candace, because we had 2Ls as presidents. Y'all still do 2L presidents?
Yeah.
Okay. And then 3L year, it was Alicia Moorshaw or whatever. Can't remember her name. I can't remember what her last name is. But she's down in Miami, I believe, as a city attorney. So she was very smart. All of them were very smart. All three of them.
Yeah.
All three of them were really smart. Because all three of them are doing really good things right now. So, but yeah, they were very good presidents too. I think all three of them built off of one another. My experience with, I loved Bossa. I thought it just gave us an avenue to kind of let loose from, putting on the law school persona and kind of get together. And I think you're more comfortable. You're inherently more comfortable with people who look like you because you've been raised and you grew up around those people.
Right.
So, it's always like a breath of fresh air. If when I first came into law school and we did like the ambassador weekend orientation, and I had like a bunch of white people around me, which is fine. Like I talk to white people too. Like I don't have nothing against them, but it's just when you see somebody look like you next to you. Like I remember the first time I saw Dion Bass. He's another Bossa guy he was like president of the trial team. But the first time I saw Dion, we really hit it off and got along. And it was just a breath of fresh air seeing somebody like that and being somebody I could talk to that I knew kind of probably related with me a little bit. But I liked what Bossa stood for. They identified issues that I feel like wouldn't have been brought up at the law school if it wasn't for Bossa. And we had advisors and professors who definitely helped out with those issues, like the Professor Nuns of the, those people. And Professor Nunn was around when my mom was in law school. But those, Bossa was something that helped you maintain your identity in it and help you maintain kind of why you're here, what you're here for, and how far we've came, but still how far we have to go, and helps you realize all of that stuff while you're in a predominantly white environment at the same time. And even when you may not be taking social justice classes or public law classes or things like that, or race discrimination classes, but if you were in Bossa, you were still hip to everything that was going on, and you were still relating with those issues that are still prevalent throughout the society today.
Right. So you will say that the Bossa culture and people in Bossa it was like a unity. You guys, united around the fact that you guys were Black students at UF Law.
Yeah, definitely. It was definitely like a unity. And I think people took pride in Bossa. People weren't just like in Bossa just, oh yeah, it's another student organization. I feel like Bossa was the one student organization where people actually took pride in it and made sure that we represented it as well or better than every other organization on campus. We weren't like a second-class organization when I was there. We made sure that we did things the right way, and we made sure when it was our turn to put on something or our turn to be visible in front of the administration or in front of the student body, that we made sure we came correct. And I think that was like a pride thing that people who were part of Bossa kind of like, again, I talk about a chip on the shoulder a lot. They had a chip on the shoulder, like, look, we just as good as y'all. We deserve to be here just like y'all. And we're going to show y'all why. And this organization is going to help show us why. And it was also like when you can look at other people in Boston and say, that person's on law review, that person's doing moot court, that person's doing trial team, that person just booked such and such class. Like, to me, I used to love talking about my fellow Boston mates who would be like doing big things. I used to love saying like, yeah, I know Vaughn over here, he booked legal writing and legal research. Like, who in your organization did that? Or like, I know, Dion, he's the first Black president of the trial team. Like, it was just good to see all of us come together. All of us had different backgrounds. All of us had grew up in different areas. All of us had different reasons why we wanted to be in law school, and all of us were different types of law students. But we all kind of came together and enjoyed having like that one thing in common. Like we're probably I don't know, the word just slipped my mind, but it's not as many of us at the school, and we are all fighting to be the best that we can be. When people weren't even given that, people that look like us weren't even given that chance, being able to have that chance a long time, not even a long time ago, but 50 years ago, which is not that long ago.
Right, right. And what could you say to the dynamic of the law school between, the white people and the Black people? I know we spoke a little bit about Boston and about Jumba outside of, the organization, just as far as like in the classes and just interaction with, the rest of the student body.
Yeah, I think for the most part, I had really good interactions with the rest of the student body. Every now and then you'll get your bad feed that you're like, yeah, I'm not, I can see, I get a certain vibe from you that's just not someone I really want to be around. But I think about two of my good friends at law school were Jared Burns and Chip Gray. They were both white students there. I think what we had in common, we were all three of us in the military, but they were very smart students at the school. I hung out with them. They would give me rides. We would study together. I would study with other white classmates of mine in different subjects, and we got along just well. We got along just fine, and I never had an issue with any of them. But I also studied with my Black students too. I made strong relationship with both Black and white. I think that sometimes, I think a lot of the Black students may have been a little skeptical of approaching white students sometimes and building relationships with those students, and probably vice versa too. I think on both sides, people were probably a little skeptical of each other, especially when you may not have the background or the experience with the other race. But luckily and fortunately for me, I've kind of grown into that as I went through Naval Academy, as I went through being an officer in the Navy, where I was the only Black officer on my ship. So I've kind of did this for a long time before I came to law school. And my experiences with both sides were pretty even keel. Now, I know others who kind of just got into Tulsa and they was like, this is where I feel comfortable and this is where I'm staying, like, because I feel comfortable here, and this is like the group that I'm going to stay amongst, and I'm not going to go outside that group. But for the most part, I think most people were willing to, from what I saw, most people were willing to accept the other race into their groups if you kind of stepped up and tried to do so.
Okay. And then can you say the same to the relationship with your professors? Was it a good relationship? Did you experience any type of discrimination or anything with your professors at UF Law?
No, I didn't. I think that I have, I think our Black professors they wanted to see the Black students succeed, and like I really appreciated that about them. I'm thinking about the professors in my head now that like stick out to me, like the Professor Hutchinson. I don't know if Hutchinson is there anymore. Professor Jacobs, Michelle Jacobs, if she's there anymore, and Professor Nutt. Like, those were like some good people to really look up, just to watch them teach in class and see how passionate they were about not only teaching, but advancing whatever social cause they were for, advancing education, ensuring that the people who were in their class actually were there to learn and making sure they got the most out of everybody. To see them do it in the way that they did it, because they were very passionate. I think all three of them, all three of the names that I just named, I had them as professors, and they were very passionate about whatever subject they were teaching. And they tried to instill it in their students, and they tried to get the most out of you, whether you were white or black or Asian or whatever. And I think they were some very good role models to me. And I think I probably look up a little bit more to them than I may do these other professors I had, just because they look like me. And I was able to say, dang, it's just really good to see somebody that looks like me at the pinnacle of their career, be that knowledgeable, and also have people who don't look like them, white professors and white administrators, looking up to them and talking about how great of a job that they're doing as well. They just set like a very high standard and a very high bar that I feel like all of us here. I think if that talk to me, you could talk to anybody else in my class too. We're like, dang, they set in the bar and we got to meet it. And that's why whenever we went into their class, I think it was a little extra preparation. But I didn't, from other professors, I never felt discriminated against by other professors at all. And I'm really trying to think here, but I just didn't. Somebody else's experiences might be a little different than mine, but I never did.
Okay.
Have you felt discriminated in it?
By my professors?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's more so implicit, I guess. Sometimes I wouldn't say it's never been expressed, discrimination. But I feel like sometimes in classes it is a little implicit. But I would say for the most part, most of the professors they tend to be a little more liberal, a little more understanding at UF Law. So I would say for the most part, no, but there has been some. But overall, it's been fine. Yeah. So do you have anything else?
Who came before us, like they had to deal with all that stuff, and I'm not saying we don't have to deal with it now, but because they've put those footprints down, like we don't have to deal with it as much, and like we gotta know, we can't get comfortable or complacent, though. We have to know it's still there, and we gotta do up to keep pushing the cause to even the people 10 years from now. They don't even have to deal with it half as much as we may have to deal with it, which may not be much at all. So.
Right, and you spoke to the professors. I think Professor Nunn and Professor Jacobs, they do a good job at, I guess, if anything were to happen, keeping other people in check, like the other professors or the administration in check. I can't speak much to Professor Jacobs. I don't know her that well, but I know Professor Nunn does a good job with that.
And he's been there a long time, so like he has a lot of respect amongst the administration. If you ever have an issue, I know he's somebody you can go and talk to.
Right. Yep. So do you have anything else you would like to add as far as your law school experience went?
Oh, man. I was thinking about something and then I lost track of it. I can't think of what the other thing I was thinking about when we were just talking about it, but no, I can't think of anything.
Okay. It's all good. If you think about it, we just come back to it. So moving on to post-law school, can you speak to, what was your life like after law school as far as like, after graduation and taking the bar exam, preparing for the bar, in your early just career life?
Yeah, so...
and what bar did you take?
I went to North Carolina, so I went back to North Carolina to take the bar.
Okay.
Yeah. I had to choose between North Carolina and Florida, and I think the reason I chose North Carolina is because I felt like that's a place that, if I do go back and call one of the places home, it'll probably be North Carolina, like move there permanently. So I just went and took the North Carolina bar. So went home for the summer, moved out all my stuff from the house, and went home and studied. studied, hit it hard, took the bar, started my job in the Navy um, out in Norfolk, Virginia, and did quite a few things out there for 2 years. But the bar that was a hard part of my life.
Yeah.
that was that was
Yeah.
tough, man. That was tough. I remember so I took the bar twice. The first time I took it, I was studying my ass off, like going in every day, any break. I think I was burning myself out. And actually, when I took the bar, I was like, yeah, I did. I know. It's like, there's no way, I'm good. I'm good to go. Man, my results came out. I failed the bar by 1 point.
No.
Literally 1 point,
Wow.
dude. Failed the bar by 1 point.
Wow.
And luckily my job, they were like, don't worry about it. You can take it again. And they just kept going. So I took it again. And I mean, I think I easily passed it the second time. But, I was so stressed out about the bar that I remember that first summer that I was studying, I was very stressed out that I think I probably overhyped myself and
Right.
and just, did probably too much. And by the time I got in the test, I was probably just burnt. So, but
Right.
I took it twice and then came back second time, passed it, and kept on going with my job. And my first, what's the question? I forgot.
Just passing the bar wasn't like your early career life.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So first time didn't pass it, came back, but they allowed me to still do work. So when I went to Norfolk, Virginia, so the Navy has like this training pipeline for attorneys, and it's a
Mm-hmm.
2-year training pipeline. And so you do a couple of different things. The first 6 months as a attorney in the Navy, you are doing what they call command services. And I like to relate it to being an in-house counsel for like
Mm-hmm.
an executive CEO or whatever. So you're basically in-house counsel for an admiral in the Navy. Admiral being like the highest officer that they are. They're like the CEOs of the Navy. So you're advising them on like different legal things, their legal parameters and the decision making. You're advising them on ethics. You're advising them on workplace issues like employment law, ethical law. Um, you're doing some. You're doing a lot of administrative law actually. So it's just like any questions he has, he'll come and ask you, and you're just writing a memo and telling him, hey, these are your options. This is my recommendation, or this is the issue. These are your options. This is my recommendation, like a little one pager, and then you'll go brief him on the issue. I did that for 6 months, and during those 6 months, I was doing that and also studying for the bar for the second time. So I got there in like when I get there October, and then took the bar in February, and then left in April. And then after that, in April, I did 6 months as a legal assistance attorney, where I'm sitting in an office and service members just come in my office and ask like the most random questions. So it could be like family law. I practiced so many, like I probably learned the most law during this time. I did family law, consumer law, property law, landlord, tenant law. I wrote wills for people. So I did wills in the States. What else did I do? I did it was a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, I had divorce issues, child support issues. I wrote a whole lot of wills. Like a lot of people needed wills. It's military, I guess, so people just wanted wills. Consumer law issues, so people like buying a car and they giving them like a illegal percentage APR on the car, or like or a dealership sold them a lemon or something like that. So credit issues, so unfair debt collection practices. I dealt with that stuff. I like communicated with the CFPB, the Consumer Bureau for Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which is like the thing Elizabeth Warren created. I dealt with the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission. I did a lot of stuff, man, in those 6 months. So that was a pretty cool time because I got the immigration. I did immigration stuff. had like a lot of service members who had family members who they were trying to become citizens and helping out people fill out the immigration paperwork. That was pretty cool. So did those things, and then after that, I went to, like I said, I was on trial team at the UF. So like I really enjoyed being in the courtroom. Like I feel like that's what I wanted. Like I wanted to be a litigator, and I wanted to be in the courtroom arguing cases and arguing motions and just strongly litigating. So after that, my last year in Norfolk, they sent me to be a defense counsel, where I just did straight up defense counsel for a year, and I was representing clients in court martials, which are just trials. They call them court martials in the military. I was representing them in administrative separation hearings. So we're like administrative trials to determine. You have witnesses, you have like prosecution, the government on the other side, and then you have a panel of 3 people who they're not judges and they don't have any legal background, but they make a decision at the end of the hearing of whether this person should basically be fired from the Navy or they should be allowed to stay in the Navy based off of the conduct that they're at the hearing for. So say somebody, they gave a drug test to some random service member and he had a positive drug test for like marijuana. The Navy can send that person to an administrative board where they will get represented by somebody like me, and then we will make the case. We'll bring witnesses to show that, hey, maybe this kind of got in his system without his knowledge. Maybe he ate something, a brownie from somebody who didn't tell him that it was. So it was just like mini trials. I did a whole bunch of those. Did a bunch of court martials. People. They were accused of sexual assault, larceny, drug usage, possession, some other ones, simple assault. I had quite a few court martials too. And I did that for a year, and that was a grind, man, because I was on it. I had a bunch of cases, and it was back to back to back. And I'm calling witnesses every day. I'm in the courtroom. I'm writing motions. I was doing everything. So that was a grind for maybe a little over a year, about 13 months. And I finally finished that last month in beginning of September, so 2 months ago.
Okay.
And then I moved up here to DC, and here in DC, I got a break from, I'm still litigating, but I'm not doing trial level stuff. I'm doing appellate law now. So I'm doing appellate law for the government right now. And I'll be doing this for the next 3 years, probably up here. And then from there, I'll decide if I'm going to stay in the military or not.
Okay, cool. So your job prospect is a little different than most people coming out of law school, because you pretty much had your job, secured, correct?
Right.
So you did have to go through, was there an interview process post law school?
So my interview process for this program was before law school, pre-law school. Once I got into the program, I was set. Now, I did do a lot of interviewing for internships. So that's one good thing. I did do a lot of internships while I was 2 internships while I was at UF. In my first year with a federal judge down there in Orlando. I clerked for him my first summer. And then my second summer, I did it with the U.S. Attorney's Office in Gainesville. So now, we talked about people looking out for you and stuff like that. The judge that I worked for, Judge Dalton, he was a white man, but he was a UF law graduate too. That's why I say the network is so strong. Man, he gave me the job. It wasn't just because I was a Florida grad. I'm sure I had the merits to be deserving of it. But he's somebody who hires strictly UF law graduates to be his clerks, whether they're summer clerks or they're the clerks that come for him for 1 or 2 years. And he doesn't discriminate based off race. He saw my resume. It helped that he has a son who was in the Navy, and then his uncle went to the Naval Academy, or not uncle, his cousin went to the Naval Academy. So we had some things in common, but still that Gator, what do they call it? That Gator
Nation.
Gator Nation, yeah, man, it's strong because like if it wasn't for, I mean, he gave me my first job out of law school, and he looked out for me and taught me a lot while I was in there with his first summer for that first summer. And he was a white guy, an older white guy too. Was probably at the law school like when they didn't have a lot of black students.
Mm-hmm.
So, but he never, he never discriminated against me or anything like that. So there are a lot of good people out at Gator Nation. So.
And have you come across any of them in your military practice? Like
Mm-hmm.
while you've been in DC?
Yeah, UF law grads, yeah, definitely. I
Yeah.
BOSA too, like Ronnie Beasley, she's a BOSA product from UF Law. She went to FAMU undergrad, but she's in the Navy now. She looks out for me because she's been doing it for a while, so she definitely looks out for me and makes sure that I'm on the right path in the JAG Corps, and making sure that if I have any questions, she answers them. Kerwin Mike, who was a graduate right before me, I'm really good friends with him. He's in the Navy JAG Corps right now. And then there are a bunch of, I've met a bunch of like UF Law grads that aren't black, like white people, UF Law grad. Bobby Walsh, met him. A couple other people I can't name by name, but it's a couple other people at UF Law grads that are in the JAG Corps. So like it's not only prevalent on the outside, even if you come public law and do something like military, they're all around, man. And in DC they have a UF Law chapter here in DC where UF Law grads get together. So like I haven't been to it yet, but there's definitely, Gator Nation is definitely real.
Cool. So I guess in wrapping up, do you have any advice for Black law students?
Yeah, definitely. Something that I've always heard from multiple people, mentors, family members, is that, whatever you think your best is, whatever you think is good enough, try to go one step beyond that. Just because when people are looking at us, especially people who we talked about don't look like us, they're looking for like one little thing to say, hey, you don't measure up. Like what can they grasp onto to say, yeah, I knew it. Like it's typical. Like I know it. We don't get the benefit of the doubt in this world, which is unfortunate. But I think also it kind of helps us. It makes us stronger too. It makes us more resilient as well. But I think any young person that's in law school about to embark on a profession, especially a legal profession, where a lot of times your reputation can mean a lot, as far as like who's going to hire you, what prospective clients come after you, what people think about you in your practice. You can't give anybody anything to hook onto and say, hey, this person's not good enough. So I don't care if it's like being on a conference call, or if it's how you present yourself at a happy hour or networking happy hour, or whether it's writing a memo to the senior associate or the senior partner at your firm, or whether it's just like how your haircut looks when you walk into a place, or like, are your clothes ironed? Like the little things are actually what matters. And no matter how great of a lawyer you are, if you give somebody like a little thing to hold on to and take grasp to, they'll use that against you. So we need to, whatever our best is, we need to continue to go above and beyond that. Secondly, I would say, I was thinking about this earlier because I read that question earlier, and I came up with this phrase earlier. What was it? I'm big on alliteration. Don't get intimidated. Don't get intimidated. Get invigorated. That's what I would say. So don't let going in and possibly being the only person that looks like you in an organization or association or in a group intimidate you. Don't let you speaking up in front of a group that may not think like you intimidate you. Don't let being a leader on a cause that hasn't been spoken on intimidate you. Rather, let you being the only person in the room, or you being the only person to identify an issue, or you being the only person to stand up for a cause that should be stood up for, or you going to fulfill your purpose, let that invigorate you. Let the fact that you are the one person in that room or the one person in that group that is actually thinking the way you are and actually has a point that nobody has raised yet. Let that invigorate you and let that say, hey, this is my chance to make a change. This is my chance to make footsteps after those who have put the footprints down before me. This is my chance to advance the cause, because I mean, the professors used to always say it, like back in law school, and mentors say it to this day. And I hear people say it, social justice activists say it all the time. We still got a lot of work to do, and it's very, very true. I see it in, I saw it when I was a defense counsel last year when, and I'm still working on this right now, and I need to finish it. I keep saying I'm gonna finish it, but I'm doing this thing where I'm trying to measure how many people. I talked about these administrative separation boards, and I was like, more and more of my clients I saw were Black clients, and more of the clients who were getting kicked out of the Navy service and being kicked out with an other than honorable discharge were Black clients. My white clients, I was able to get them off and get them a second chance, or get them an honorable discharge, but my Black clients were the ones getting kicked out and stuff. And nobody has ever looked at, in the Navy, as far as I'm concerned, nobody has ever looked at what percentage of our people that were separated from the Navy by these administrative separation boards are Black service members. They don't take, when we put in, because we always put the results of these boards in the system, they don't take into account, hey, what is the race of this person? So there are no statistics on it. So what I started doing for my own records is looking at all the clients I've had and started determining how many of my clients are Black and how many of those clients, and like what's the ratio of the clients that were Black and what's the ratio of those clients that were either kicked out or received an honorable discharge compared to my other clients. And, nobody's thought about that before, but that stuff, like, and I'm going to finish it and try to come up with something and try to get some other data to kind of build this argument off of. But it's stuff like that if we don't notice it, the other people definitely not care about it. It's our job to raise the issue and bring it up, because if we don't bring it up, nobody ever will. Just like if was it Virgil Hawkins, if he never applied to law school at first and never fought the fight, then we don't know who would have been in this law school in the set. I'm sure it would have happened at some point, but how long would it have taken after that before somebody attempted to get into law school, before we broke that comfort level that they had at the law school, that the administration and faculty had there of just having the all-white student body. So, for the UF law students in Bosa, I say those two things, go a step beyond what they think is good enough. And I really like that it's saying, don't let something intimidate you, let it invigorate you.
Awesome. And then as far as your work now, is there anything you would like us to know? Could be anything.
Yeah, so this is good for me to advocate for the JAG Corps maybe. So if you guys are interested in litigation, if you're interested in being in the courtroom, outside of being a district attorney, this is probably a district attorney or public defender. This is probably where you're going to get the most experience right away. And then at the same time, it's like a 4-year commitment. Do your 4-year commitment. Now you got on your record that you served your country and you've also been a litigator. It's a pretty good gig. It's competitive, but it's a pretty good gig. So if you're thinking about it, I would say definitely take the opportunity to go talk to somebody. Anybody can call me and talk to me about it, and I'll talk to them more about it. But I don't think enough of us either, one, know about this opportunity and know about the JAG Corps enough to make a educated decision, but two, we may let the prospect of going to war kind of scare us away. Like, just because you're in the military doesn't mean like you're going to war. Like, they have so many different jobs in the military. Obviously, a lawyer, but doctors, accountants. Like, just because you're in the military, they're not gonna put a gun in your hand, send you to war. This is a place where you get a lot of good experience and from the get-go that you probably wouldn't get at a major law firm. And then if you do 4 years and you decide you don't want to do it anymore, then you go to a major law firm after this, and you'll be set up even better than you would probably set up as a law student. So I think it's a good gig, and I would tell anybody that's interested to definitely give it a chance and don't cross it off without being educated on it.
Cool. Awesome. So are there any final thoughts you have? Anything else you would like to add that we didn't touch on?
We went over a lot, man. I don't think I can think of it. Not right now, at least. If I think of anything, I'll send you a text or something.
Cool.
Yeah. What are you doing after law school? You know yet?